This episode of The Seminarian is sponsored by Asbury Theological Seminary.
There are going to be pastors entering into the ministry where they've never known a ministry context without AI being present and ready to help 24/7.
Seminarian. Noun. A student in a theological seminary. Duh.
Hey friends, and welcome to The Seminarian, where we talk about seminary life, theology, and the things that form us as Christians. I'm Josh.
And I'm Joe.
And in today's episode, I feel like this is deja vu, but we are talking about the artificially intelligent seminarian. We're talking about AI again.
Whoa, again.
Yeah. So actually, our discussion about AI, specifically ChatGPT's influence on academia and on seminary life, that was our first episode back in January of 2024. It is now October of 2024. And I know that you're supposed to do content that's evergreen, meaning, you know, you don't listen to this episode 5 years from now and it's like, this is so irrelevant in that day and age. However, we have to talk about this because it is just developing at such a breakneck speed that it's concerning, quite frankly. So here's the deal. As I predicted in that episode back in January, Google has released their own version of this voiced AI, and it's taking the form of a podcast generator.
Whoa, that's interesting.
This might actually just be our very last episode.
They're going to run us out of business. That's
Exactly. It's creepy. So Google just a few days ago released this thing called Notebook LM, and it takes content. It could be a website, it could be a PDF, it could be a picture, a voice recording, and then it creates two artificial hosts, a female voice and a male voice, and they kind of dialogue together, and it's incredibly realistic, and it's wild. It's just this podcast format of being able to consume content.
Really?
So here's what I did. I went ahead and I gave it a bunch of our transcripts from previous episodes. I think I did like 5 episodes, and I threw it into Notebook LM, and in minutes, it produced this extremely well-polished podcast episode, I guess you could say. And it's about 8 minutes long, and we're going to listen to it together, and then, Joe, you and I are going to respond and try not to freak out too much.
Yeah,
we're going to react. All right, so let's give this a listen, and we'll be right back.
All right, so get this. We're diving into how seminary students are dealing with AI.
Seminary students, that's an interesting one. AI and faith don't usually go hand in hand.
Right. You'd think it'd be like oil and water, but we got a bunch of episodes from this podcast, The Seminarian.
Seminarian as in?
By seminary students for seminary students. And they are not shying away from AI, like, at all.
Oh, really? What are they saying?
It's more like they're wrestling with it big time. Like 1 minute they're debating if using ChatGPT is cheating.
Cheating? How do you cheat with AI in seminary?
Like for writing sermons or papers. Can you really be a good pastor, a true theologian, if a bot is doing the heavy lifting?
I see. So what's the verdict? Are they saying it's good or bad?
It's less about a verdict and more about the struggle. They even interviewed ChatGPT itself.
Wait, they interviewed the AI. How do you...
It's wild. They ask it about its role in academics, ethics, the whole shebang. And the thing is, ChatGPT doesn't just spit out generic responses.
So what does it say?
It argues for responsible use, talks about avoiding plagiarism, sounds almost, well, pious.
You're kidding. A bot advocating for ethical AI use. That's both hilarious and a little creepy, don't you think?
Totally. It's like if AI can sound so convincingly human, how do we know it's real spiritual insight versus just a really good algorithm, right?
It's blurring the lines for sure. But it sounds like these seminary students are at least thinking critically about it all.
They are. They see the allure, for sure. Who wouldn't want help with Greek translations or, like, jump-starting a sermon? But they also know being a pastor is about way more than just information.
It's about guiding people, right?
Yeah.
Being there for them, especially in tough times.
Exactly. They talk a lot about the importance of mentors, seasoned pastors who can offer guidance, especially when dealing with things like, well, toxic church cultures, which they're surprisingly open about.
It's refreshing to hear that kind of honesty, actually. Nobody's perfect, and the church can be as messy as any other institution.
Totally. And they're not pretending to be these perfect, robotic pastors in training either. They share their own struggles, balancing seminary life, family, work.
It's got to be tough. Seminary is like its own world, right?
They even break down their daily schedules in one episode. Talk about jam-packed. You've got classes, Greek and Hebrew studies, sermon prep, internships, often part-time jobs on top of it all. And they're trying to have some semblance of a personal life, too.
It humanizes them,
Mhm.
makes them relatable, and that makes their insights all more valuable, I'd say.
100%. And speaking of relatable, get this. They discuss how something like football fandom can be like a religious experience.
Wait, what? Football? How did that even come up?
They were assigned this book, You Are What You Love, and it argues that our rituals and habits, even things we don't consider religious, shape us more than we realize.
Okay, I'm intrigued. So how does football fit in?
They were skeptical at first, too, but then they break it down. The stadium becomes like a temple. Jerseys are like vestments. Pre-game hype is the call to worship. Even fantasy football drafts become these theological debates.
Wow, I never thought about it like that. But it makes you wonder, what are the rituals and habits that shape my life? Even the ones I don't realize. And it makes you think about the church, right? Like, are our rituals really hitting the mark? Are we telling a story that matters in the middle of all the noise these days?
It's a huge question, especially now, the technology changing everything so fast. And that's where the whole AI and faith thing comes back in.
Right, because it's easy to see technology as this threat to faith, but these students are approaching it differently, aren't they?
Totally. They're not anti-AI, but they are saying, hey, let's not take the easy way out. Don't let these tools become a crutch that stops us from really learning and growing.
Like with online learning, they talk about how it can make seminary accessible to people who could never do it the traditional way.
Which is amazing, right? It's like opening up this world of theological education to anyone, anywhere.
They even rave about resources like the Bible Project. For
Yeah.
free, high-quality content from actual scholars.
Okay, that's cool. It's like having a world-class library at your fingertips. But they don't sugarcoat it either. They're honest about the downsides of the digital world.
Yeah, it's easy to get sucked into echo chambers and misinformation. Like, how do you know what to trust online?
It's a good point. You can't just Google your theology, right?
Exactly. They emphasize discernment, being able to sift through all the noise and figure out what's legit. Like, don't just be a consumer of information. Be a critical thinker.
And they model that in the podcast. They don't shy away from those tough theological debates. They even disagree with their professors sometimes.
Oh, really? Spill the tea. What kind of debates?
Well, there's this one episode where they're talking about the historical context of the Bible. One professor's all about, you got to understand the historical background to get it.
Which, okay, makes sense.
Right. But then one of the hosts pushes back a bit. He's like, but what about the Holy Spirit? Can't the Spirit guide us even if we don't have all the historical details?
Ooh, good question. So what's the answer?
They don't really land on one definitive answer, which is kind of the point. It's about wrestling with those tensions between tradition and modern scholarship, you know?
And they do it respectfully, I'm sure.
Totally. They even say to the listener, look, we don't have all the answers. They're not pretending to be these theological gurus. They're just a group of friends trying to figure things out.
I like that. It's honest.
Yeah.
And it creates space for the listener to ask their own questions.
Right. Exactly. They even talk about struggling with imposter syndrome, feeling overwhelmed, doubting their calling to ministry.
It's real.
Yeah.
Being a pastor, being in seminary, it's not always sunshine and roses.
And they're open about the toll it can take emotionally. They talk about therapy, seeking professional help, which you don't always hear in religious circles. It's like they're saying, hey, being a good pastor, it's not just about knowing all the right theological answers.
About being human. Well,
Exactly. And being willing to admit when you need help.
which takes us back to something they said earlier about how you can't just learn this stuff from books.
It's about relationships, real life experience.
Right. And they even managed to make those really heady theological concepts relatable.
Yeah.
Like there's this one episode they're talking about their basic Christian doctrine class.
Sounds riveting.
You'd think it would be dry as dust, but it's actually fascinating. They're talking about the Trinity, atonement theories, all that heavy stuff.
Okay, so how do they make that engaging?
They find ways to connect it back to everyday life. Like they were debating God's sovereignty versus human free will.
Oh, that's a fun one. The whole, does God control everything or do we have a choice dilemma?
Yeah, exactly. And instead of getting lost in the abstract, they bring it down to earth with a story about a pastor friend of theirs. He's dealing with this really difficult church member,
I've been there.
and they're trying to figure out how much of this situation is God's will versus this one person just making bad choices, you know?
Tough one. So what's the answer?
Well, they don't actually come to some neat and tidy conclusion. It's more about the process of wrestling with it together, which honestly is kind of refreshing.
Because in real life, there aren't always easy answers, right?
Exactly. They even say, look, we're not sure, or we're still figuring this out, which makes them way more relatable than some know-it-all expert.
It's like they're saying, hey, it's okay to not have all the answers. That doubt can actually be part of faith.
100%. And they encourage that same kind of curiosity in their listeners. They're always saying, go read this book, check out this website, talk to people you disagree with.
It all circles back to that open-minded approach they have, like with AI. They don't have all the answers, but they're asking the tough questions.
And maybe that's the biggest takeaway from all this. It's not about being afraid of technology or even just embracing it blindly. It's about figuring out how to use it wisely,
How to let it serve those deeper human goals.
of seeking truth, building relationships, serving others, all that good stuff.
And on that note, that wraps up our deep dive into the world of seminary students navigating faith in a digital age. We've explored a lot today, from AI and ethics to the power of ritual and the importance of human connection.
It's been quite a journey,
Hopefully it sparks some new insights for you, our listeners.
and maybe even inspired you to do a little deep diving of your own.
Thanks for joining us.
Until next time.
Dude, how
Oh my gosh.
I am thoroughly freaked out right now. Again, for our listeners, that wasn't real. We don't have anybody here in the studio that's recording with us. That's ones and zeros.
Oh my gosh.
That's math
That is creepy.
and algorithms. It's blowing my mind.
It knows our podcast better than we know our podcast. I'm like, what?
It's just a straight up better podcast. I mean,
Oh man,
literally, this is like our final episode.
this is it. We're retiring. Not on top. We wish we were on top. But now we're,
There's a new seminarian
there's
in
a new
town.
seminarian.
Smarter, better looking,
Whoa.
probably. Dude,
That's weird.
it's an AI that's
Nah,
talking.
I don't know what I feel about that.
It's talking about AI as if it's not AI. I mean, it made us sound pretty good for
Yeah,
the
that
most part.
talked us up, except for that sarcastic comment there for a second. And speaking of which, a sarcastic comment from AI?
Not only was it a sarcastic, it was
What?
he was talking about the class, Basic Christian Doctrine, and she says, that sounds riveting. And then the AI, because it's not two people, it's just a software, it's just
just-
a program.
Numbers and
Right. It's responding to its own sarcasm. It's like, well, you would think
Appropriately.
it's right. You would think it's
reassuring.
dry as bones, but actually it's really engaging. And dude, how the heck?
I can't even respond appropriately socially like that.
I know.
And I'm a human. I'm real. I'm not artificial. At least I think I am.
Yeah, that you know of. No, seriously, that's the other thing is like
What?
I kind of did like that weird hack version of where I got ChatGPT to have a voice and read a script and all of that. And that was like pretty cutting edge. There wasn't really any programs that were offering that type of thing back in January. And now
10 months ago.
yeah, and now it has, I mean, it sounds so real.
If we didn't tell our listeners that this was AI,
I doubt anyone would catch it, at least now.
at least
maybe
initially,
you're right.
like the first listen through, maybe even the second one,
Yeah. That, oh my
it's
gosh.
convincing enough. And that's terrifying.
And again, it's the speed at which things are progressing that is so freaky. I mean, we live in exponential times that it can, just 10 months ago, we've seen leaps and bounds in the voicing, in the syntax, in the just the human emulation, if you want to put it that way, is just unreal.
How long did it take to generate that?
Like 3 minutes.
Oh my God.
It's an 8-minute clip, and it took 3 minutes to make it. And I didn't alter anything. That's not edited at all. That was just me giving it some of the scripts from past episodes that we've done. And the way that it integrated everything, the social commentary, the way that it tried to relate to it.
The tone of the voices when it got like at the end and they were drawing it to more of a personal kind of connection, they got kind of quieter, I feel like. And kind of slower and more breathy. It like drew you in. Like it was
and like
wild.
sometimes it would do what I'm doing. It just makes a pause. It has to think. It says something. Was just so accurate. Here's the thing. It's a voice model, right? So they had some actual human probably read a bunch of scripts, and then it got all of the nuances of those two people. I got very like Linda and Rob kind of vibes from their voices. Like, back to you, Linda. You know, it was, but they somehow got all of these guys to get all the nuances of their voices, and then they can emulate those voices saying pretty much anything now.
It's only a matter of time before we can just do that with our own voices, right?
Oh, yeah. We are totally going to do that. Listeners, see if you can detect it, because I'm not going to tell you. I'm just going to start releasing episodes that it's just an AI that sounds like me.
How do you even know that's not what's going on right now?
Could be. I mean, that's so crazy to think about.
What's real?
The age of misinformation. I mean, we've got deep fake. We've got AI that can make videos and photorealistic pictures, and now voices. It's like, how are we going to know anything is real?
Seriously.
And
no wonder there's so many conspiracy theorists out there.
yeah,
No wonder everybody has this sort of conspiracy underlying theme when it comes to like politics or anything, you know?
what can you trust? And I mean, we're only in the beginning stages of AI. That's the crazy part to me, is this is very new technology. And again, I'm just thinking about, like, there were periods in human history for certain peoples, hundreds of years passed, and there were no major technological breakthroughs. And we're seeing them, it seems like every 6 months, there's some massive new breakthrough or function or market or whatever. And I think AI is here to stay, man. It's already so deeply embedded. This is not a trend. This is not a gimmick. This is like future from here on out will involve AI.
It's like Google, right?
Right.
Google came out of nowhere, and now if you have a question, Google it.
Right.
Who doesn't Google the answer to their question? And now Google incorporates AI into their search engine. Just when you search, the first thing that pops up now is an AI-generated response.
Oh, no, it's undergoing metamorphosis and evolution. Like, we're watching this. Because, I mean, did you even hear that line, by the way? She said, whatever. It said, you can't just Google your theology. I thought that was a really profound line.
That is pretty profound.
And it's like,
and how many of us actually do Google?
Oh, gosh, man.
For theology.
I think part of the reason that it's even creepier is because of how much knowledge that it has access to. Because again, this is Google. This is the internet. I mean, this is billions of people using this every single day and have been for the past decade, 20 years or whatever. It's like it can access deep philosophy and theology and history, and it's as readily available on the tip of its tongue as, you know, roses are red, violets are blue to us, you know, just like 1 + 1 is 2. Well, for it can as quickly and as easily access all of this information and integrate it together.
And make decisions based on probability, right?
Yeah. Language modeling, and just it knows how humans think and work. And you've got like this AI developing or working on itself kind of idea that is so crazy to me. It's like we are living in a sci-fi movie, man. Wild.
It is pretty wild.
Okay, so how we do need to just stop freaking out. I'm still freaking out. But how does this affect seminary life? Like, how do we see these advancements in AI being used at Asbury or at another seminary?
Well, I mean, the obvious one is Googling answers in theology. A lot of people's knowledge about things does come from Google.
Yeah.
So your like knowledge base, comes out of what you've searched online a lot of times.
Right. So if you don't know
sometimes more than books, right?
Yeah. I mean, if you, in yesteryear, I think there was a time when I was like in high school where I could say this was true, but if I didn't know an answer to something, I went and got a book about the subject at the library.
Right.
That is a bygone era.
We're dating ourselves here at this point. It's like
a library? What's that?
Oh, it's a library.
Yeah. So now,
you mean what's on my phone?
Right. On my watch? Yeah. Shoot, just in my AirPods, I can just straight up ask my AirPods a question and it'll know it. I don't even have to do anything. It's wild. And so for a seminary student, yeah, you're going to seminary because you don't know things. You want to learn. And of course, you're going to use the internet. Of course, you're going to use whatever is the best research tool available. And right now, that's for sure some form of AI. So, I mean, and no shame because I think I do this ethically, but I've used AI for research purposes. I've asked AI, hey, what are the top commentaries voted the most popular or most scholarly commentaries on such and such a book or subject or whatever. And I've used AI. I remember this summer, I wanted to do a little pre-reading in the summer. And so I gave it all of my syllabi. And then I said, hey, can you give me a reading plan? Make a reading plan for me through the summer. And that way I'll be ahead on my classes. And it did a great job. I was like, okay,
wow,
this day read this day read this. And it was all of my 4 classes that I'm doing. So it's great. It can save you a lot of time.
Yeah.
And again, I think there are ethical uses, but as we are just going to get inundated and flooded with applications of AI, where does it stop, I guess? Like, how do we safeguard, for sure plagiarism, but just hacking the learning process in general?
Yeah. As it's becoming more and more natural to go there for information.
Yeah. Even since the last episode that we did on AI, I've had discussion posts where students, I could totally tell their responses were being written by AI, and I would go and I'd use a website to check if it was AI, and it was. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, it's already in use, full swing use for sure in, I think, high schools and colleges, no doubt.
Right.
But seminaries.
Yeah, that's crazy.
We need to.
It brings up even questions of like, do I really need to do the work to know this if AI can just do it for me? Why do I need to study Greek or Hebrew if I can just ask AI and it can give me a better translation of this verse than I could?
Ever do.
Right.
Yeah. Why would I intentionally limit myself with worse work?
I'm not going to do it better than AI, probably.
Wild.
It's got way more information, and it can do it so much faster.
Right. I mean, it reminds me, as I'm looking at you, Joe, there's a microwave beyond your head over there that I'm looking at. And I'm looking at this microwave and being like, yeah, who is going to, I don't know, boil water or heat water up to a certain thing if you can just throw it in a microwave? It's going to do a better job, gets the same results, takes 1/10 of the time.
Popcorn.
Yeah. Like who
does it on the stove anymore? Yeah.
You only do that for nostalgia's sake.
Right.
So are these skills that we're learning in seminary actually just vestiges of an ancient practice that we're well beyond? That is so sad.
Yeah. Reading.
Oh no.
It's just like, why read the book
when I can
you
just
could
have a
podcast that's entertaining and informative and does a better job like summarizing the book than you would be able to just reading it?
And again, I know that's kind of a ridiculous question because we're like, because it's reading, for crying out loud. But think about it. If we only retain 10% of what we read, but AI is able to hack some kind of psychological, neurological, algorithm that humans learn 20% better if you do it a certain way.
They sound way better than that.
Yeah, they do. But if they can relay the information in a way where we actually learn more, than actually reading the book, at that point, it's now a debate of pragmatism. Like, if my goal is to learn, then I should use AI. Crazy.
Yeah, it's a wild, wild world we're living in. Even though, like, I mean, being a teacher, like teaching other people.
Oh, I know. I feel so bad.
Right? Because it's like, is that a dying kind of profession? Kind of?
Don't say that.
I know, it's
You're
sad.
like making me tear up right now.
I want to teach, but it's like, I couldn't probably teach a lot of subjects as well as like an artificial intelligence might be able to. That's scary. That's what I want to do. So it's like, is it a threat to that?
I think we have to
discipline. Yeah.
We have to do one of two things. Here's what I think. We have to either, one, just buckle up and settle in for the fact that there is a superior intelligent, not life force, but like an artificially intelligent entity that is just straight up smarter than all of us. And it's only the beginning. It's only going to get smarter. Hopefully that raises the bar a little bit and we all strive to be smarter than it. But there's probably a little bit of like, hey, it's going to know more than me. It's going to be able to articulate these things more than me. It's integrating more knowledge than I am. And I just need to be okay with that. So what is the best use of my humanity? Or two, second option is we sharpen our pitchforks, we go find the mother brain, and we stab AI in the face.
Sooner than later, folks. That's all I gotta say. I've seen the movies.
You want to get on?
You got to get on this fast. You know, you got.
Not too little, too late. Like Sarah Connors is not going to be there to save you.
Yep. We need to
join the revolution.
We need to do it before Elon Musk pulls back the mask, and we all find out that
Okay. So,
but seriously,
one thing that Rob and Linda, for lack of a better name, accused us. I think they were trying to pay us a compliment, but listening to that now, I'm just like, are we really that incompetent and floundering and uncertainty all the time? It's like they didn't really have an answer. They just kind of wrestled with it and struggled with it. And it was really relatable and refreshing.
That was really refreshing.
And kind of cute how they like don't know anything.
Yeah, it was kind of demeaning, right?
Yeah, it was. It was passive aggressive.
Oh my goodness.
Rob and Linda, you think you're better than us?
You know what? To answer that, I don't know.
I will answer it. Here's some certainty. Get ready. Here it is.
Okay, bring the certainty.
As a seminary student, and this is very certain, I'm not mincing my words or floundering in confusion. I think that you should not use AI to give you book summaries like Cliff Notes when you are assigned a book. You should read the actual book. I think it'd be unethical if you.
What if you've read the book and then afterwards get the Cliff Notes?
Don't confuse me. I'm trying to be certain. I don't know. I'm wrestling with that.
Oh man.
Okay. Number two.
That's how you know you're not artificial intelligence. Is you can't come up with a good answer.
Is when you're dumb. That's when you know you're not AI.
Not artificial intelligence. This is genuine dumbness.
Okay. So number two is I think you should not have AI write your papers or your responses or your discussion posts or anything that you are positing as your work. That should not be AI. Now, I think an ethical use of AI is without its help, write something and then have it check your grammar, not rewrite your paper, but have it check your syntax and your grammar, see if if you're missing anything, if you're weak on any of your points. I think that's fine. That's great. Another use I would say would be incorrect is having AI just come up with a bunch of sources to cite and you didn't actually read any of the citations. You didn't actually do the research.
Right.
You're just like, hey, I need 5 sources for X, Y, or Z. And then you're just like, give those to me. And then it gives you something in whatever citation style and you throw that into your bibliography. Like that would be unethical. You need to do your own research. It could even start you off on a good place to look, but then you need to read it and then you need to synthesize that research.
Right. Because we talked about this before. AI should be like a tool to help you progress in your understanding or knowledge.
Right.
Versus the crutch that, you're just leaning on because you don't know anything or whatever. Right. Or you don't want to do the work or you're lazy. You want it to be something that actually helps you to get better.
Right. The thing is, as a student, you need to take responsibility of your own education and learning, right? So you're paying for this education and it's not up to your teachers or the courses or other faculty. Like you are trying to learn and maximize your learning. So don't shortcut that. And I mean, if you do and you get the degree or whatever, it's like, great, you got a piece of paper, but you didn't learn anything. And what, are you just going to use AI for all of your sermons? But I guess that's the debate. Like maybe you should, maybe you could, maybe they'd be better sermons. I don't know.
Yeah.
And I'm wrestling again.
It makes me wonder how many sermons actually out there that you'd hear are AI.
At least in portion or something like that. I know that's going to be...
I mean, think about it. You're a pastor. You've been a pastor for a little bit. You go through a dry spell where you just got nothing.
Yeah, you're spiritually
what do you do,
dry.
Yeah, you're spiritually dry, but you have to prepare sermons every Sunday, What do you do?
I think I'm not so worried about this generation of current pastors.
They're not probably doing that.
Probably not. I'm worried about the next wave of pastors, the pastors yet to be pastors, where this is already... It's like my kids were born when the internet was already a thing.
Right.
You know what I mean?
It's a part of them.
Yeah. They've never not known it. And there are going to be pastors entering into the ministry where they've never known a ministry context without AI being present and ready to help 24/7. And I think that, pastors in 10 years, like that's where it's like, gosh, will we even have an argument against it at that point? The Seminarian is made possible by our sponsor, Asbury Theological Seminary, a multi-denominational graduate school of theology called to teach the unchanging truth of Christianity. I have learned so much from my professors at Asbury, and hey, you can too. Did you know that over 80% of incoming students received scholarships last year, and many students graduate without tuition debt? Discover how Asbury Seminary makes theological education accessible by visiting asburyseminary.edu/seminarian. Okay, here's what I want to do to kind of wrap up this episode. This is going to be really meta and confusing because I want to prove that we're as intelligent as Rob and Linda. So I'm going to actually give the script of what we've just talked about and do it all over again. I'm going to plug it back into Notebook LM and have it give a response to... Wait, how does this work?
Yeah.
It would be our podcast about their podcast about our podcast.
Talking about AI.
Yes. So they're going to make another podcast about our podcast about their podcast about our podcast about AI.
Whoa. If your head's spinning,
it's because
join the club.
We're really smart. Let's hear back from Rob and Linda.
Yeah.
All right. So we're back and ready to really get into the nitty-gritty of this AI-generated podcast.
I'm ready. Let's do this.
Because remember, we're not just talking about any AI here. We're talking about an AI that's been trained on the words, the ideas, the very anxieties of these two seminary students, Josh and Joe.
Right. It's like their digital doppelgangers suddenly showed up to class one day.
Exactly. And now imagine hearing this digital version of yourself, not only sounding like you, but also dissecting your deepest fears, your insecurities, like it's reading your diary.
No, that's just creepy.
It is, right?
Yeah.
And that's exactly the reaction Josh and Joe had as they listened to their AI counterparts holding forth on, them. So how did they handle it? I mean, were they freaked out? Were they flattered?
Honestly, it was a total mix of both.
Really?
Oh, yeah. At one point, Joe just blurts out, "It's creepy. I am thoroughly freaked out right now."
I mean, can you blame him?
No, not at all, because it's like the AI is holding up a mirror, right, to all their insecurities about this whole AI revolution.
Like, are we becoming obsolete? Are we going to be replaced by our digital clones?
Exactly. And it gets even weirder because the AI starts to psychoanalyze them.
No way, really?
Oh, yeah. It's like, Josh, you use humor to deflect from your deep-seated fear of technology, or Joe, your fascination with AI sermon writing suggests a desire to outsource your faith.
Whoa, the AI went there.
It went there. And you can tell it really got under their skin because here they are, these seminary students, wrestling with the nature of God, the meaning of existence, and suddenly they're being out-theologized by an algorithm.
That has to do something to your sense of self, your sense of purpose,
Yep.
right? Like if an AI can do what we do, what makes us so special?
Exactly. And it's a question that, honestly, it goes way beyond seminary, right?
Oh,
It gets to the heart of what it means to be human in this increasingly digital age.
right, because we all have that fear,
'Kay.
right? The fear of being replaced and becoming irrelevant.
Totally. And what I find so fascinating is that Josh and Joe, they don't shy away from that fear.
So how do they deal with it? Do they have any answers?
Well, they're still searching, just like the rest of us.
That's fair.
But they do offer some, shall we say, coping mechanisms.
Okay, I like where this is going. Hit me with them.
Okay, so Josh, ever the comedian, he lays out two options.
Two options, okay?
Option one, we fully embrace AI's superiority,
Okay, we bow down to our robot overlords.
essentially, and try to find new ways to be human, whatever that might look like.
I mean, it's one way to go.
Option two, and this is my personal favorite, we sharpen our pitchforks.
He said that.
Oh, yeah. He's like, time to wage war on the machines.
Okay, a little extreme, but I get it.
I mean, it's a joke, but also not a joke, because there's this underlying sense of like, we need to fight for our place in this new world. We can't just let technology steamroll us.
Absolutely. It's about setting boundaries, saying this far and no further.
Exactly. And that's where the AI, believe it or not, offers a glimmer of hope.
Wait, really? The AI that's been freaking them out this whole time?
The one and only, because towards the end of their AI-generated episode, Rob and Linda, they talk about the purpose of their podcast.
Okay, and what do they say?
They say it's to spark new insights, to get people thinking differently about faith and technology.
Which is ironic, right? Because they are
It was-
technology.
Exactly. But it's also incredibly profound because what it suggests is that even AI, at least in its current form, it recognizes the value of human consciousness.
That is kind of mind-blowing when you think about it.
Right. Like the AI is basically saying, hey, I might be able to mimic your voices, analyze your thoughts, but there's something about the human experience, the messy, unpredictable, often irrational way you approach the world that's still essential.
It's like the AI is acknowledging its own limitations, saying, you know what, you humans, you're still onto something.
Right. And that, to me, is a really powerful message.
It is, because it means we still have a choice, right? We're not just pawns in some pre-programmed game.
Exactly. The future isn't set in stone, or algorithms for that matter.
It's ours to shape, for better or for worse.
And that brings us to one of the most thought-provoking questions posed in this whole meta-layered podcast extravaganza.
Okay, lay it on me.
Josh asks, will we even have an argument against AI in 10 years?
Oh, wow, that's a heavy one.
It is, right, because it suggests that the rate of technological advancement might be outpacing our ability to even comprehend it.
Like we're on this runaway train and we have no idea where it's going.
Exactly. And that's a scary thought, but it's also a call to action.
Okay, I'm listening. What do we do?
Yeah, and it makes you wonder, like, at what point do we lose control,
That's a valid concern, for
Like-
sure.
Are we already on that train? Or is there still time to, hit the brakes?
Well, that's $1 million question, isn't it? But I
Absolutely.
think even just asking that question, acknowledging that fear, it means we're not there yet.
Okay, so we're not just passive passengers.
Exactly. We have agency, we have a voice, and we need to use it to shape the conversation, to set the boundaries.
So how do we do that? Where do we even begin?
Well, I think it starts with exactly what Josh and Joe are doing, having these conversations, not just about the technical aspects of AI, but about the ethical, the philosophical, even the spiritual implications.
So, less about how AI works and more about why it matters.
Precisely. Because if we don't grapple with those questions, someone else will, and it might not be someone we agree with.
That's a sobering thought.
It is, but it's also a call to action.
So what's our takeaway here?
I think it goes back to that AI-generated podcast, that eerie yet strangely hopeful message that even AI, in its current form, It recognizes the value of human consciousness.
It's like it's telling us, hey, you're still relevant, but you got to work for it.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Don't take your humanity for granted. Engage with these questions. Wrestle with the unknown, because that's what makes you unique. That's what gives you purpose.
Wow, that's kind of beautiful.
It is, isn't it?
Mm.
And it's a message I think we all need to hear, whether we're seminary students, podcast hosts, or just, regular people trying to navigate this crazy, increasingly digital world.
Absolutely. And on that note, I think we've given our listeners a lot to chew on.
Food for thought, hopefully.
Exactly. And if this deep dive has sparked something in you, a question, a concern, even a little bit of that healthy fear we've been talking about, well, then we've done our job.
Absolutely. Keep those conversations going. Keep asking the tough questions, because the future of faith, the future of humanity itself, it's not a spectator sport. It's a team effort.
And on that note, we'll leave you to ponder the digital abyss and what it means to be human in an age of AI.
Until next time.